Hello Divination and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how to style a beautiful pricing table in Divi. This is the final result we're aiming to achieve. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to log into our WordPress admin dashboard. And right now I am logged in. So we need to create a brand new page. So all you have to do is to come over here to pages and click on add new and then give your page a title. So I'm just going to call mine beautiful pricing table. Next, we want to come over here and click on use the Divi builder. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click on build from scratch. And then I'm going to click on the front end editor. So I'm going to click here on this button here. The images that we're going to use in our tutorial can be found in the post, which I'll link to in the show notes below. And this is the actual post. So if I scroll down here, you'll notice that there is a section where you need to enter your email address to download all the images. So I'm just going to add my email address here. And then I'm going to click on download. And then now you need to click this button here, which says download the files. And as you can see on the bottom left here, my files have been downloaded. Right, so let's start by styling our section. So I'm just going to close this for now. And then I'm going to click this gear icon to enter my section settings. And then let's start with our background. So over here, we're going to add our background gradient. So I'm going to click here on the gradient tab, click this plus button. And over here, our first color needs to be set to white. And then our second color needs to be this hexadecimal value. Now, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link in the show notes below. Next, I'm going to come over here to start and end position. So I'm going to set this to 50. And then the end position needs to also be set to 50. Next, we're going to come over here to our design tab and add some spacing to our design. So I'm going to click here on spacing and we're going to start off with our bottom margin, which we're going to set to 50 pixels. Right, so while we're designing this, we might as well set our sizes for the tablet and smartphone. Right, so I'm going to click this little tab here and then I'm going to come over here to the tablet and set this to 20. And then on the phone, I'm also going to set this to 20. Now let's add our left margin. So while we're on the phone tab, let's add 20 to the left margin. And then over here on the tablet, we're also going to do the same. We're going to set 20 to our left margin. And then on the desktop, we need to set this to 50. So now that we need to add the same value over here to the right, the quickest way to do it is just by activating this chain. And then I'm going to do the same for the tablet as well. And the phone as well. Great. So all our margins are all set. Now let's go on to the padding. And for the padding, we're just going to add 0 to the top and the bottom. Activate my chain. Right. So these are all the settings that we need to do for the section settings. Let's go ahead now and save. Next, we need to add our columns. So I'm going to click here on this plus button. So what we need here is 3 columns. I'm going to select them. Now let's go to the column settings. So I'm going to close this for now. Click here on this gear icon and we're going to start over here with our design tab and set our row to full width. So I'm going to click here on sizing, set this to full width, and then we're going to come over here to gutter width, activate it. And then we need to set our gutter width to 1. Now, if you're wondering what the gutter width is, this is the spacing between the columns. So 3 is set by default. So if you want to reduce the spacing between the columns, we need to bring them all the way to 1. Okay, I know right now we can't see it because there's nothing in the columns, but you will see as we continue designing this. Now we need to go to spacing. And over here, we need to add a top padding of 94 and a bottom padding of 177. So I'm going to add it here. Now let's add our left and right padding. So over here, we're going to set this to 50 for 150. So this needs to be applied both to the left and the right. So I'm going to activate my chain one more time. And then we might as well enter all our sizes for the desktop and mobile devices. So I'm going to click here on this little icon, click on the tablet. And over here on the tablet, we need to set this to 30. So both sides, left and right, activate the chain. And we're going to do the same for the phone as well. And activate the chain. Right, so back over here to my desktop tab. So for our padding for column 1, 2, and 3, we're going to set this to 10 pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start over here with column 1. So left and right, we're going to enter our 10 pixels, activate the chain. over here, we're going to do the same thing, activate the chain. And then finally, we're going to enter here our 10 pixels. So for this one here, for the 3 columns, we don't need to go into the mobile devices. So that's all we need to do for now. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's add a text module to column 1. So I'm going to come over here, click this plus button, search for my text module, select it. So the text we need in here is just going to be called basic. Now let's add a background color. So I'm going to click here on background. And for our background color, we're going to set this to white. Next, let's add our image. So I'm going to click here on the 3rd tab to add our image. Click this plus button. And then we need to upload all the files that we downloaded earlier. So I'm going to click here on select files. So I'm just going to scroll down here, and this is where my pricing tables are. I'm going to click on open. So the one I'm going to select is this one right here. I'm going to select this, upload an image. So now you can see that my image has been applied to the background here. So over here, we need to just make a few adjustments. So for our image position, I'm going to set this to top center, and then we need to make sure that it's set to no repeat. Now let's head over here to our text settings. So I'm going to click here on this paintbrush tool. So first of all, I'm going to set my font weight to ultra bold, and the text color, we're going to set this to white, and we're going to make this nice and big and set this to about 80 pixels. And for our letter spacing, we're going to set this to -3 and a line height of 1 EM. Now let's add some spacing to this. So I'm going to come over here to spacing. So first of all, we're going to start with our top margin, and our top margin is going to be set to 5 VW. So I'm going to enter it here. This needs to be set to 0. And for the tablet as well, that needs to be set to 0. Okay, so now that we have that in place, let's go to our padding and set this to 20. And for our padding bottom, this needs to be set to 200. Now let's go to our borders. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add some rounded corners, but these are going to be added to the top. So first of all, break the chain and then add your 20 pixels here and 20 on the right. And now you can see we have some beautiful rounded corners there. Now let's go to our box shadow. So first of all, let's select our style. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one right here. And then we're going to go to our box shadow blur strength and set this to 80. The spread strength needs to be set to -10. I'm going to add my box shadow color, and this needs to be, in fact, I'll enter my value between the brackets like that. Now over here on the vertical position, this needs to be set to -20. So that's all we need to do for now. Let's go ahead and save. And then we need to add a button module. So let's click this plus button here and select our button. So in that button, all we need to say is buy now. But of course, you can add any information that you need in this button. Now let's align this to the center. So I'm going to come over here to design alignment, and then we're going to center this. Now we need to customize this button, but for us to do that, we need to come over here to button and activate use custom styles for button. Because if you try and customize it like this, you won't have access to all the settings. So I'm going to activate it now, and the button text color needs to be set to white. I'm going to go ahead and choose that. And then over here for the background, we're going to choose a gradient. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, and let's choose our first color. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to come here for my second color. Again, I'm going to paste it. And for our gradient direction, this needs to be set to 100 degrees. Now we can see here that we have this border width here, so we don't need that border width. So let's go ahead and get rid of it. So I'm going to reduce that to 0. So now we don't have the border width. Now over here on the font weight, we need to set this font weight to ultra bold. So I'm just going to scroll down here until I get to a button font. And then for the font weight, I'm going to set this to ultra bold. For the letter spacing, I'm going to set this to -2. Now it's time to add some padding to the button and make it look much nicer. So I'm going to scroll down all the way down here, click on spacing. So for the top and bottom padding, we're going to set this to 10, activate my chain so that my value is added both to the top and the bottom. And for the left and right, we're going to set this to 30. And again, I'm going to activate my chain. And then finally, we're going to add a negative margin of -54. So this will push the button up into this image area. Now let's add a subtle box shadow. So I'm going to click here on box shadow. We're going to go with this style here. Select that. So for the blur strength, I'm going to set this to 80. For the spread strength, I'm going to set this to -14. And then for our shadow, I'm just going to click here on this eyedropper tool and paste in fact, this is the right color. So let's leave the default as it is. So that's all we need to do here for the button. Let's go ahead now and save. And then the next stage now is to add a text module onto this. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, search for my text module, select it. So this is where we need to add our pricing. So I'm just going to highlight all this text and add our price, which is going to be $15. So the next stage is to add a background color to this. So I'm going to click here on background, click this plus button, and we're going to make the background white. Okay, so let's go into the text settings. So I'm going to click here on design. So we're going to start with the font weight. So with the font weight here, we're going to set it to ultra bold. And then over here on the text color, I'm going to add an RGBA value. But notice now that we can't add our RGBA value here because this is currently set to hexadecimal. So all I have to do now is to drag this slider over here on the right and then paste the values between the brackets. And if you want to use the exact same values as I'm using in this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. Now let's move over here to the text size and we're going to set this to 120. So this is going to be nice and big. And our line height is also going to be set to 1. Now let's head over to the spacing tab. So here we need to add a top padding of 100 and bottom padding of 100. So this is just to give you some breathing space. Okay, so that's looking nice and big. And then over here on the left padding, we're going to set this to 80. Now let's head over here to the borders. Now remember, we added our rounded corners here at the top. So we need to do the same here to the bottom. So first of all, break the chain. And then I'm going to add 20 over here to the bottom left and 20 to the bottom right. In fact, I think we used 30. So let me just update this to 30. Okay, that's much better. Right, so the next stage is to come over here to box shadow. So I'm going to choose my style. And then for the vertical position, this is fine at 2 pixels. But the blur strength needs to be set to 80 as we did before. And the spread strength is fine at 0. Finally, for the shadow, we're going to set this to 0.21. So as you can see, it's really, really subtle and you might not be able to see it on this video. Now that we have all this set, let's go ahead and save. And then we need to add another text module. So I'm going to click on this plus button here, search for my text module. I'm going to select it. So again, we're going to add our pricing. So this is going to be $15. Now let's go ahead and stylize this. So I'm going to click here on this paintbrush tool. So for our text size, we're going to set this to 50. And then for our text color, we're going to set this to black. And then over here for the font weight, this needs to be ultra bold. And then for the line height, this needs to be set to 1 EM. Right, so the next stage is to come over here to spacing, because what we need to do now is to position this in this white area. So to achieve that, we need to add a custom margin of -180. And notice, as soon as I've entered that, this has now been pulled up into this white area. Right, so the next stage is to add my bottom margin of 180 to my tablet and also my phone. Okay, and then back over here, I'm going to set my left padding to 100. So now my pricing is now in the middle. So pretty much this is our final design. So I'm just going to go ahead now and save. Now to add these pricing tables to the remainder of the columns, all we have to do is to select all these modules and then copy and paste them onto these two. And then finally, we just need to change the memberships from basic to pro and whatever it is you want to name them. So this is the design that I have. So all I did here was just go in and change the name basic and also the prices to mid and 30 and pro and 45. Right, so let's come back over here and do some more customizations. So first of all, let's change our background image to our first text module. So I'm going to click here and then click on background. And then let's add a different image here. So I'm going to go with the second one. Upload an image. So this is just to distinguish what we have here on these 3 pricing options. Next, I'm going to come over here to design, spacing. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this top margin like that. So now this is going to look like it's raised. So this also emphasizing that that this is the popular one or this is the one that people should be choosing. Okay, so let's go ahead and save. And we can also change some designs to this button. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon. Click on design button, and then we're going to come over here to our colors, to our gradient colors. So the first color here, I'm just going to paste the value here like that. And then I'm going to add my second color. So now you can see that my gradient here matches what we have here in this image. So pretty much this is our final design. I'm going to go ahead now and save. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.